The desert was endless, stretching farther than memory could reach. Martha Lane, a cowgirl hardened by loss and long miles, rode beneath a sun that seemed intent on burning her alive. Her horse's hooves stirred up ribbons of dust, the sound steady and lonely. She'd been traveling for days without water, chasing rumors of a spring that probably didn't exist. The land was silent, except for the wind and the faint jingle of her saddle. The desert had a way of testing the soul, stripping away everything except the will to keep moving forward. By noon, her canteen was empty. Martha could taste the dust on her lips, thick and bitter. The horizon shimmered, heat twisting the air into ghostly shapes. She'd stopped trusting mirages long ago. The desert loved lies more than truth. But then she saw it, a faint band of color cutting across the dunes. Not white, not gold-green. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, and looked again. It was still there. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "That ain't real." Yet, her heart began to race, that dangerous spark of hope, refusing to die. Her horse stumbled but kept moving. The closer they rode, the more impossible the sight became. The sand grew darker, heavier, until it wasn't sand anymore. It was soil, damp, cool, alive. Martha dismounted, crouching low to touch it. A chill ran up her spine. She hadn't felt moist earth in months. "What in heaven's name?" she murmured. The air itself had changed softer, fragrant, carrying the faint scent of water and wildflowers. Somewhere nearby, she heard something she hadn't heard in years. The low, gentle murmur of a river. Martha followed the sound through tall grass that brushed against her shoulders. Her boots sank into ground rich and dark as coffee. Every few steps, a new color appeared, wild blossoms of red, purple, and yellow waving in the warm breeze. Her horse followed cautiously, ears twitching. When she broke through the last curtain of grass, she stopped dead. Before her stretched a vast green valley, blooming beneath the same merciless sun that burned the desert above. A river wound like a silver ribbon through it. She gasped, tears stinging her eyes. "This ain't real," she whispered again, but it was. She dropped to her knees and scooped up a handful of water. It was cool, sweet, alive. She drank until her chest ached and splashed her face, laughing softly. Her horse snorted beside her, lowering its head to drink. For a long moment there was only peace. But then she heard something, a sound that didn't belong. Voices. Low, deep, carried by the wind. Martha froze, her hand instinctively going to the revolver at her hip. She turned, scanning the horizon. Between the rows of towering crops, something moved. Huge shadows, slow, deliberate, human. Her breath caught. They were too large to be riders, too steady to be tricks of the light. Martha crouched, peering through the leaves. What she saw made her heart lurch. They were people, or close enough to pass for it, but enormous, twice her height, with broad shoulders and long, graceful strides. Their skin was sun-bronzed, their clothes woven from natural fibers she didn't recognize. One of them paused, turning toward her. His eyes were deep brown, calm, and curious. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then he smiled. "You are small," he said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. Martha's mind went blank. She'd heard legends of giants living beyond the mountains, stories told around campfires by men with too much whiskey and too little sense, but she'd never believed them. You're real," she stammered. The giant chuckled, a sound like rolling earth. "As real as you, little wanderer." His smile softened. "You look lost." Martha nodded, still gripping her gun. "Been lost a long while," she admitted. The giant tilted his head, studying her. "Then perhaps you've been found." He motioned for her to follow. Her instinct screamed no, but her heart whispered yes. She followed him through the valley, her boots sinking into lush soil. The deeper they went, the more surreal it became. Fields of wheat, taller than a man, swayed gently in the breeze. Trees glowed with fruit the size of her head, heavy and golden. The air buzzed with the hum of insects and laughter, deep, melodic, human laughter. Martha's awe grew with every step. "How do you live here?" she asked, looking up at her towering guide. "There's no rain, no river out there." The giant glanced toward the horizon. "We remember what others forgot," he said simply. When they reached the heart of the valley, Martha stopped to take it all in. A village stood before her homes, built from stone and timber, each one large enough to hold a barn. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys. Giant women worked the fields while children played nearby, their laughter echoing like music. Everything pulsed with life. A woman approached, tall and graceful, her long hair streaked with silver. She carried a basket filled with fruit and bread. "Eat," she said gently, offering it to Martha. The cowgirl hesitated, then took a bite. Sweetness flooded her tongue, rich and real. The woman smiled, watching her reaction. "Welcome, traveler. You must rest." Martha swallowed, still dazed. "Who are you people?" she asked. The woman exchanged a knowing glance with the man who'd found her. "We are what remains," she said, "of what the world once was." Martha frowned, not understanding. "You mean before the drought?" The woman nodded. "Before the forgetting." Her words made no sense, yet they stirred something in Martha, a memory of rivers, grass, and the sound of rain. The woman gestured toward a great oak tree. "Come, the elder will want to meet you." They gathered beneath a tree, where benches carved from stone circled a long table. The elder was even larger than the rest, his beard silver and his eyes wise and kind. He studied Martha for a long moment before speaking. "Few from the outside find us," he said, "and fewer still are meant to stay." Martha swallowed. "I didn't mean to intrude." The elder's smile was gentle. "You didn't. You followed life. Life led you here." He handed her a cup of water that sparkled faintly in the light. "Drink, child of dust. You've come far." As she drank, warmth spread through her chest, not from the water but from the strange peace surrounding her. These giants weren't threats. They were caretakers of the land, of each other, of something sacred that had survived when everything else had turned to ash. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. The elder's gaze softened. "Because once, long ago, we were helped too." He looked toward the horizon, where the desert met the sky. "When the world forgot how to give, we remembered." His words hung in the air like a prayer carried by wind. That evening, they shared a meal beneath the glowing sky. Martha sat among them, listening to their songs, deep, steady rhythms that spoke of the earth's heartbeat. She watched as they tended fires, repaired tools, and cared for animals with patience she'd never seen in humans. There was no rush, no greed, no cruelty. Every act seemed sacred. A child offered her a flower as tall as her arm, giggling shyly. Martha smiled. "Thank you, sweetheart." The girl beamed, her laughter ringing like bells. For the first time in years, Martha felt like she belonged somewhere. As night fell, the valley transformed. Thousands of glowing insects drifted above the fields, lighting the night in soft gold. The giants gathered near the river, their reflections rippling across the water. Music began again, haunting and beautiful. Martha sat at the edge of the crowd, feeling tears rise unbidden. She wasn't sure why she cried. Maybe it was the beauty. Maybe the kindness. Maybe the simple fact that something so miraculous could still exist in a world that had forgotten joy. The elder's voice rose in song, deep and soothing. and Martha's eyes fluttered closed. When she opened them again, she was lying on a soft bed of woven reeds beneath a wooden roof. Morning sunlight poured through the open door. Her horse grazed peacefully outside, and the sound of water filled the air. For a moment, she thought she'd dreamed it all. But then the giant woman entered, carrying fresh bread and fruit. "You slept long," she said warmly. Martha sat up slowly. "How long?" "2 days," the woman replied. "Your body needed to remember rest." Martha smiled faintly. "Guess I forgot how." The woman nodded. "Most of your kind have." That day, Martha walked the village alone, her boots sinking into cool soil. Everywhere she looked, there was life: crops, orchards, streams. It shouldn't have been possible, and yet it was. The giants greeted her kindly, offering smiles and fruit as she passed. They treated her not as a stranger, but as one of their own. When she reached the riverbank, she knelt beside it, touching the water again. "How?" she whispered. "How did you do this?" A voice behind her answered softly. "We did not take from the earth," said the elder. "We gave." Martha turned to face him. He was smiling, his shadow long in the morning light. "You humans forgot that the land needs rest, just like you," he said. So it took it. He knelt beside her, scooping up a handful of water. "We stayed when the desert came. We remembered the old ways. The land forgave us." Martha stared at the ripples spreading across the surface. "Then maybe it can forgive the rest of us too." The elder looked at her with eyes that held both sadness and hope. "If you remember to ask," he said simply. As the sun climbed higher, the valley shimmered with light, vibrant and alive. Martha knew she'd stumbled upon something extraordinary, not just a hidden paradise, but proof that kindness and balance could survive even in the harshest places. She watched the giants move through the fields, working with grace and strength, and felt a strange pull in her chest. The desert outside had taken everything from her: her home, her friends, her faith. But here, surrounded by life and warmth, she began to feel something new, something dangerous. Hope. Days turned into weeks, and Martha Lane forgot the feel of dust beneath her boots. The valley had its own rhythm, slow, steady, gentle as breathing. Each morning began with the song of the river, followed by the hum of the giants at work in their fields. Martha helped where she could, hauling baskets of fruit that felt like boulders in her arms, laughing when the children teased her smallness. They called her Little Sister of the Sunday. She didn't mind. For the first time since childhood, she woke each morning with purpose. The giants taught her their ways. She learned how to plant by moonlight, how to speak to the soil before tilling it, how to listen to the earth's pulse before drawing water from its veins. It wasn't magic, it was understanding. "The land remembers everything," the elder said, "even kindness." Martha listened, her hands buried in cool soil. "Then maybe the desert remembers pain," she murmured. The elder nodded slowly. "Yes, but it can be taught to forgive." Those words stuck in her mind long after he'd gone, echoing softly each time the wind stirred the fields. As days passed, Martha began to change. Her skin grew sun-warmed but healthy. Her eyes, once tired, now shone with quiet strength. She laughed more easily, worked harder, and listened deeper. The giants accepted her as one of their own, though they knew she came from a world of noise and greed. "You still look toward the horizon," said the silver-haired woman one evening. "Do you wish to leave?" Martha hesitated, her gaze drifting to the edge of the valley, where dunes rose like sleeping beasts. "No," she said finally, "not yet." But even she heard the doubt in her voice. One morning, as she fetched water from the river, she noticed the current had slowed. It wasn't much, just a whisper of difference, but the giants noticed too. Concern rippled through the valley. "The flow weakens," murmured the elder, kneeling by the bank. Martha crouched beside him, peering into the shallows. The water was cloudier than usual. "Could be blockage upstream," she offered. The elder's brow furrowed. Perhaps, or perhaps the desert remembers again. His tone sent a chill through her. The river was their lifeblood. Without it, even paradise could die. A small group prepared to travel upriver, and Martha volunteered to go. "You know the desert better than we," said the elder. "You will lead." She nodded, saddling her horse and packing light. 3 giants accompanied her silent, powerful figures against the blinding dunes. The valley disappeared behind them, swallowed by gold and heat. Hours stretched into days. They followed the dry path of the river until the sound of water vanished altogether. At last, they found the cause. A wall of sand and stone had collapsed into the canyon, choking the river's flow. The giants began to dig, their hands moving earth like shovels. Martha worked beside them, sweat pouring down her back. The sun scorched, the wind burned, but she didn't stop. Every handful of dirt felt like defiance against the endless hunger of the desert. When her strength began to fade, one of the giants lifted her gently onto a rock. "Rest, little sister," he said kindly. "We can finish." But she shook her head. "Not without me." She picked up her shovel again. Together they worked until night fell and the first trickle of water returned. The sound of rushing water was like music. The giants stood silently, watching the river reclaim its path. Martha dipped her hand into the cool stream, feeling tears burn her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. The eldest giant smiled. "No," he said softly. "We remembered. They camped by the river that night, the stars burning bright above." Martha couldn't sleep. She stared at the current, thinking of all she learned. The giants didn't control nature. They cooperated with it. They didn't demand, they listened. Maybe that was what humanity had forgotten long ago. When they returned, the valley rejoiced. The river sang louder than before, its waters gleaming under the sunday. Martha felt pride swell in her chest as the children ran to greet her. "You saved us," they shouted. She laughed, shaking her head. "No, the river saved itself." The elder smiled at her words, spoken like one who belongs. That evening, they held a feast in her honor. Lanterns glowed, music filled the air, and Martha danced barefoot in the grass. For the first time, she felt truly free not from the world, but from the emptiness she'd carried within. But peace never lasts forever. Weeks later, Martha woke one morning to find the horizon dark. A storm brewed not of rain, but sand. The giants had seen such tempests before, but this one was different. "The wind is angry," the elder said gravely. "It remembers us." The storm struck before noon, a wall of red dust devouring the valley. Trees bent, crops tore free, and the air turned thick with grit. Martha fought to reach the barn, shielding her face. The giants formed a barrier around the children, their massive bodies standing firm against the storm's rage. Hours passed before the wind began to fade. When silence finally returned, devastation lay everywhere. Fields flattened, homes scarred. The river, once clear, ran dark with mud. Martha stood beside the elder, staring at the ruin. "Will it grow back?" she asked quietly. He placed a massive hand over her shoulder. "Yes," he said. "Because we will plant again. That is our way." His calmness steadied her. Together they worked for days, replanting, cleaning, rebuilding. The giant's patience humbled her. No anger, no despair. Just quiet perseverance. The kind she had lost long ago and now found again. One night, as Martha sat by the river, the silver-haired woman joined her. "You have given much to this valley," she said. Martha smiled faintly. "It's given me more." The woman's gaze was kind but knowing. "You will leave soon." Martha froze. "Why do you say that?" "Because the river carries stories both ways. It brought you here, but it will carry your story back." The cowgirl said nothing. The truth hurt because it was right. She belonged to the open sky. The world that had forgotten kindness needed someone to remember it for them. At dawn, she packed her saddle. The giants gathered by the fields, their faces solemn but peaceful. The elder approached, holding a seed, small, glowing faintly in the morning light. "Take this," he said. "Wherever you go, plant it. It will remind the earth to forgive." Martha took it reverently, tears in her eyes. "I'll come back," she promised. The elder smiled sadly. "You already have, in every drop of water, in every seed that grows." The giants watched as she mounted her horse and rode toward the horizon, her figure shrinking against the rising Sunday. The journey out felt longer than the one in. Without the valley's life around her, the desert seemed even more barren, emptier than before. Yet she carried something with her, not fear, not despair, but light. At night, she camped beneath the stars, cupping the seed in her hands. It pulsed softly, warm against her skin. She didn't know where she would plant it, only that she must. Somewhere, life would begin again. The world needed to remember. And maybe, just maybe, she was meant to be its reminder. Weeks later, Martha found herself at the edge of another wasteland, a dry riverbed, long dead. She knelt, pressing the seed into cracked earth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as the wind whispered across the sand, a single green sprout broke through. She laughed aloud, the sound echoing across the empty plains. "Guess you weren't lying, old man," she said softly. As she rode away, the sprout grew, roots deepening, leaves unfurling toward the Sunday. Somewhere beneath the ground, the earth began to remember kindness again. Years passed, and travelers began speaking of strange patches of green spreading through the desert. No one knew where they came from or how they survived. Some said a wandering cowgirl had brought them. Others claimed the desert had forgiven itself. Martha never returned to the Giant's Valley, but she didn't need to. She saw their work everywhere in the grass that defied the sand, in rivers reborn from forgotten wells, in the laughter of children in new towns. The giants had given her a gift, and she'd shared it with the world. In her final years, Martha built a small home by one of those rivers. It wasn't grand, but it was peaceful, filled with green vines, fruit trees, and birdsong. Travelers came to rest there, drinking her water, listening to her stories. When they asked where she'd learned to make the desert bloom, she'd smile and say, "From friends who taught me how to listen." She never spoke of their size or their valley. Some secrets, she believed, were meant to stay sacred. But each spring, when flowers bloomed brighter than ever, she knew they were still with her. When Martha passed, the people buried her beneath a single oak tree, a strange tree for the desert, tall and unyielding. Its roots reached deep, its leaves stayed green even through the harshest droughts. Travelers would rest beneath it, hearing whispers in the wind, low, gentle, almost like voices singing. And if you listened closely, they said, you could hear laughter deep, kind, and ancient. The giants had not been forgotten. Through one woman's journey, the world had remembered that even in the loneliest deserts, life could bloom again.